and get your hair cut way up high. Get yourself a lawyer, son. You're gonna need a real good one.
Look, we don't always want a lawyer, but if you're going to get one, make sure you get a sharply dressed lawyer, and we have just such a lawyer sitting across from us, David Whiting, Melbourne solicitor. But yeah, I've done this show a few times now. I've never seen you look so sharp.
I'm wearing a tie, that's what it is.
That's it.
That's it, wearing a tie.
Can I ask you where you're off to today?
I'm going to the Flinders Street railway station to get a train to the racecourse.
There'll be nobody on that train.
No,
surely
no,
that won't be packed at all.
Race specials. I've never done a race special before.
It's a nice train to take, that one. It can be...
Turn left at Newmarket.
Colourful.
Yes, I'm sure it will be.
And you'll be part of that colourful. You don't have any homework, do you?
No.
This,
I had last week off.
Are you ready to go?
Ready to go.
Are you ready to go? Just we've got Caroline from the Patch. Hello, Caroline.
Hello. I was pulled over by the cops and my car was unregistered. I phoned Vic Roads and they claimed they sent 3 letters and I never received any of them. Followed it all up. Overall, I ended up being out of pocket about $2,000.
Wow. Did you need to get a new roadworthy to get your vehicle re-registered?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay. All right. So, yes, hamburger with a lot. Yep. Caroline, the obligation under the legislation is on you to pay your registration. So, they no longer send you a sticker to put on your windscreen. So it's entirely up to you. And failure to get a reminder is not the same as failure to meet your obligation. So no, you've nowhere to go. I do know that Vic Roads will now allow you to receive information by email. Have you considered giving them your email address?
Yes, I've had the app, but I was in the middle of going from regular driving to hand controls with other issues, so there was a lot going on, and I was.
I'm afraid there is no nice answer for you.
Caroline, thank you very much for calling in. 1300 222 774 if you've got a question for David Whiting. I might point out we were talking about Vic Roads yesterday, and there was a little bit of that, not with registration, but with licensing. People had their licence cancelled because they had to renew it on medical grounds, and they were given a certain date. They didn't do it by that certain date, but their question was, can Vic Roads just cancel my licence without telling me again, without a further reminder?
Yes.
Kathleen is in Hawthorne. Hello, Kathleen.
Hello, good morning.
Morning. Go ahead.
David, I've got a question about the strata law, basically, which I know is a real nightmare part of the law. But if we have a resident who is in arrears and refuses to pay, there's been some discussion about that, are we able to restrict our strata services to them? Things like contacting our strata management, making complaints, etc.
No. You have some obligations. The Owners Corporation has obligations to the residents, and the residents to the Owners Corporation. You've got no right to stop or suspend your services. You essentially have to sue the member.
Okay, that's all I needed to know.
Not very satisfactory, but you can't take things from them.
That's okay. I've got one more question, if that's permissible as well, and it's the use of common property. I'm very clear on the use of common property. If an individual wants to use common property areas for storage or something like that, that's a whole another issue. But it's really around the use of garage space. We have an undercar car park with the spaces for the cars marked out. Some of those spaces also are abut to a wall, for example. In our regulations, it says that we can only have a car stored there. Now, it's common use to obviously store
some stuff at the end of the car space. Yes,
correct. Within the lines of the car space, though.
Yep.
And I also wondered, is it permissible to push a bike rack on that wall, for example?
It would appear to me to be a breach of your bylaws. So what you might do is look at amending your constitution, doing something along those lines.
Kathleen, thank you very much for the call. Just on what you were mentioning before about probate, the change to the probate fees that the government have dropped just before the public holiday. What's your reading of those changes and the increases?
Outrageous was the word that came to mind. On a $7 million estate, it's now $16,000. So yes, it's gone. It used to be about 2.5, so it's just gone crazy. It'd make a difference to my practice. We do a reasonable amount of probate, and I normally have funded the application fees. Someone comes along and says, "Can you fund the $16,000?" I'd have to think very carefully. So you get this really interesting issue as to whether or not you see this as is this a fee for service or effectively a tax? I come along and look at it and think it's totally disproportionate to the cost of providing the service.
Well, the government say that they need to put that extra cost in there to be able to pay for the Supreme Court to carry out that service. So I guess an open question to you is the Supreme Court that hard up that they need an increase that size?
It's an interesting question. There are the trial divisions of the court, and there's this probate registration process. So I don't know which bits they're talking about, but just some years ago, the government changed the legislation to say, back in the old days, there was if you died without a will, then we went looking to see who your heirs were, and every now and then you would find that some person in Eastern Europe you would get a cheque, right? They changed it and basically said, if you die without a will, no one closer than your first cousins is going to get a cracker. So I made a Freedom of Information application to the Justice Department to find out how much money the government then expected to make. Because if you didn't have cousins further than first, the government took the money, refused to tell me. Oh, okay. So I came along and say, well, where is that additional income factored into the receipts?
Lily's in Windsor. Hello, Lily.
Oh, good morning. I'm ringing on behalf of a friend who is going through a separation, and she received an inheritance when she was young, and with that inheritance they bought a house together.
Yes.
He opened up a business maybe 4 or 5 years ago. The business is going down now. It's not good. It's been closed, and there's debts on that business. Is that partner able to touch that inheritance in that money, in that house?
At the very least, how many years ago did the inheritance arrive, Lily?
I think she was around 10 years old.
Right, so but she wouldn't have bought a property with her partner at that stage. So what I wouldn't be calling it yes, it was an inheritance, but it would probably be better described as money she brought into the relationship.
Okay.
Right, yes. So you won't be able to isolate it on the basis that it was a present from someone when I was a child. But you'd come along and say, well, when this relationship started, I brought in this amount of money and you brought in this amount of money.
Right.
So that's where it gets taken into account. So will he be able to get a share of it, or the partner get a share of it? The answer is probably not. But what you do is you say, well, what's the asset pool, and then where did it come from? So you pull out of the system windfall gains like the inheritance money that you brought into the system when you got together, but you assume that while you were together, everything you made together. So I can't say that she would get that dollar value back, or in fact even the house that's represented by that dollar value. But certainly she will get substantial credit for having brought that money into the relationship.
Lily, thank you very much for the call. It's Justin Smith filling in for Raph Epstein for a couple of days while he has a break. David Whiting is here taking your calls, 1300 222 774. Jim's in Mount Waverley. Go ahead, Jim.
Good morning. It's a question about the statute of limitations, David. I had a friend there who committed a slight offence 25 years ago, and he was charged and went into court. But the judge declared that the offence wouldn't be recorded. Now, if he went overseas and he had to,
so he's applying for a visa to another country, is that right?
That's right.
Okay,
yes.
and they're coming along and say, I want all. Well, again, the wording used, the way you've described it to me, I would say that there was a finding of guilt. Yes, I'm satisfied you committed the offence, but I'm not going to record a conviction. If they ask for convictions, the answer is no. If they ask for findings of guilt, the answer might be yes. But why not go back to the Magistrates Court and make an application for a copy of in fact, ask for a police report. Do you apply for a police report? It will be there if you ask for it.
Oh, it's 25 years.
Oh, I understand. The government has long memories, Jim. So I would be suggesting that that's where you start.
Sometimes it's in our favour, that memory. Sometimes it isn't. Jim, thank you. Danny's in Torquay. Hello, Danny.
Hi, David and Justin. We're hoping you can help us with some advice. We've had a shocking experience with a large online car auction house. We've taken our car to sell online, had the car detailed, was in fantastic condition. It hasn't sold, unfortunately. Upon picking it up a month later, the sunroof was open the whole time. The car is completely flooded. It's covered in mould, and we've been told to our face, there's nothing I can do about it, mate. We've got 5,000 cars here to look after.
Danny, it's a contract issue. You're going to need to look and see what the terms of the engagement of the auction house were. I don't hold the same view of the auction house. You might also, I take it this was your personal car?
It was, yep.
Then I would also be looking at the Australian consumer law, because I would have certainly assumed that they had an obligation to mind properly cars that they'd taken on this basis. So your starting point is to look at your agreement with the auction house and then look at Australian consumer law and find out consider whether such a provision is an unfair term in a standard form contract that shouldn't stand.
And look, let me, if I don't mind me jumping in here, David, surely the online auction company would also have their own insurance.
Yes, but the insurance is to cover their contractual obligations to their customers. So if Danny's got a contract which says, I have absolutely no responsibility to you. So imagine, if you will, that a punter comes and looks at Danny's car and opens the sunroof to make sure that it works, walks away, no one ever changes anything. And the auction house says, look, I can't be responsible to police every car. That is, to have a person standing by any time somebody comes to look. So that risk becomes Danny's under the contract, in which case their insurance policy will factor that risk into account.
Would Danny's insurance cover it?
Probably not, but it would be worth having a look at her policy as well.
Danny, thank you very much for the call. 18 past 10. Keep them coming, please. David Whiting is here to take your calls. 1300 222 774.
ABC Radio Melbourne and Victoria. Now we're talking.
The number's 1300 222 774 if you would like to speak with David Whiting. He put on a tie just for you because he's heading to the Melbourne Cup. Do you have a tip?
I knew someone would ask me for a tip. I've chosen a horse which isn't going to win. Does that help? Okay. I looked at the paper while I was waiting, and there's all sorts of horses that I know aren't going to be. No one's picked this one. Okita Sushi. So not for any particular reason. Will it win? No.
Louise, this is in Montrose. Hello, Louise.
Good morning. I own a property, and in the words of Midnight Oil, I want to give it back, and I want to know what the process is in giving property back to the local First Nations people.
I would be talking to the relevant RAP, which is the registered Aboriginal party, and find out what they want to take it.
Yep.
So it's not as if you can simply walk away from it. You'll be stuck with responsibilities and the like, but you can go and talk to whichever is the Aboriginal group that looks after the area where the property is, or is responsible for it, and tell them that you would like to return ownership of the land to them. Now, let's be really practical. If it's a suburban block that happens to be in a country town, you might find that they would sell it.
Okay.
All right. Now, on the other hand, if it's open land next to a treed land next to a national park, they might have a different approach.
Louise, if you don't mind me asking, what is it? What type of property is it?
It's a residential block in the eastern suburbs, and yeah, so it is. It could be used as a housing for Indigenous families. Look, I just have got this strong sense that I need to give something back.
I wanted to ask you that. When did you get that feeling? When did you decide you wanted to do that? Was there a catalyst to that, or?
My father often told a story of meeting an Indigenous person in Moree in New South Wales who put out his hand and shook my dad's hand and said, "You took it off me." And that stayed with me. I've been involved with a school that had a sister relationship with an Indigenous community.
Okay.
And I just feel it strongly.
Louise, thank you very much.
Louise, before you go, one thing I'd like you to think about is whether there might be an Aboriginal charity rather than a RAP, which could in fact use the land to do something like what you're talking about, as opposed to, I assumed that we were talking about returning it to nature. I'd be talking to a charity rather than just the RAP.
Okay, and just would there be costs to me to do that? So, like,
if it went to a charity,
sort of thing.
If it went to a charity that was technically a deductible gift recipient, then you would get a tax deduction for the value of the gift. There would be no stamp duty. There would be some costs, but I would be suggesting you would say to the recipient, look, there might be $1,000 or $1,500 in costs. I expect you to pay it.
Okay.
Louise, thank you very much for the call.
I'd like to know how you get on.
Yeah, absolutely. Please let us know, Louise. Paul is in Mirrabah. Hello, Paul.
Yes, good morning.
Fire away, Paul.
I've got a large handful of speeding fines, all just a couple of kilometres over the posted limit, and I've recently used Google Maps and discovered that my speedo is actually reading about 10 or 12 kilometres less than my actual speed. I'm wondering if I have any recourse for having those dealt with.
Well, no. It's an interesting question because the Australian standard relating to the working of speedos doesn't require them to be particularly precise. So there's a factor built into the machines that measure your speed. So they give you an allowance of 3. There are also then manufacturing errors. So it can make a difference as to the pressure that your tyres are running at, what tyres you've got. There's a whole series of factors. None of those are defences to what you're talking about. If you find someone who has altered the recording devices inside the car, then you've got a claim against them for causing the penalty, but that doesn't make the penalty go away.
Right.
Paul, thanks very much for calling in. Tony is in Elstonwick. Hello, Tony.
Good morning, David. Look, I'm just curious. When I ride my motorcycle along Hoddle Street, there are large signs, motorcycles permitted in bus lane. But, when I turn off Hoddle Street onto Victoria Parade, there's no sign saying motorcycles are no longer permitted in bus lanes. I mean, if I leave a 60 zone into a 50 zone, there's signage. If I'm on the tram leaving the free tram zone, there's an announcement. Are they obliged to tell me where I'm leaving?
I would have thought so, but why don't I take that as homework, Tony, and you drive safely between now and next Tuesday, and I'll give you an answer.
Thank you. Okay. Bye.
Actually, as a motorcycle rider myself, I'll be listening into that. I'll be very keen to hear what the answer is. Tony, thank you.
I've never met a motorcycle rider who doesn't want to take a shortcut.
love a shortcut. Yeah. We love it. We love parking on the footpath. We love going up the middle of traffic. There's nothing we don't like that will save us time. I can vouch for all of that. Kevin is in Narrandera. Hi, Kevin.
Morning, gents. How are you?
Wonderful. Go ahead.
Mate, I've got an issue with Fines Victoria wanting to enforce a fine that was written by Victoria Police in New South Wales.
Yes. Do you mean they actually stood next to your car and wrote the ticket while you were over the border or on a bridge on the river or something like that?
Well, no, they've listed a specific address in New South Wales.
Yes.
Where apparently I'd got a fine for not recording correct information in a logbook to heavy transport.
All right. So what's happened is the allegation is that there was an offence committed in Victoria.
No.
No.
No, the offence was committed in New South Wales.
If an offence was in fact committed, Kevin. Yes. Okay. So I don't. So did your vehicle was the vehicle registered in Victoria, or is it a heavy interstate registration?
Yes, it would have been. That one, I believe, might have been registered in a Victoria address.
Well, that might be the issue.
And some of it doesn't.
Oh,
okay.
But, look, I've checked the video of the day. It's a Sunday. There was no interaction with Victorian Police at all on that day.
And is it come to the owner of the vehicle or the driver of the vehicle?
No, it comes to the driver of the vehicle.
And how do they know who the driver is?
Via the owner.
Oh, so the owner's nominated you? Or nominated this person in New South Wales?
Look, I'm at a loss. I am at a loss.
No, we'll see if there are traffic offences committed in Victoria, and let's say it's a company owns the truck, the truck owner has the ability to nominate the person that he or she says was driving the vehicle on the day. Now, that might be someone in New South Wales, but it's a ticket written in respect of an offence committed in Victoria.
Thanks very much for calling in, Kevin. We appreciate it. We have a text question here, no names mentioned, but here's the question. I've been wondering what would happen if one of my children was found not to be mine because of the infidelity of my wife at the time. Would there be any recourse to claim for the years of child support costs incurred with the upbringing of that child?
Yes. So remember, this ability to claim is not the conclusive answer to the question. This person could be responsible because the child was normally part of his household, on an ongoing assessment for responsibility for child expenses. Yes, there could be a claim. There would be an obligation on I don't know, we'll call it the head of the household, but someone will shoot me for that. But there would be the ability for civil proceedings to recover monies.
We've got a final call. Phil is in East Ringwood. Hello, Phil.
How are you going, David? Thanks for taking the call. My daughter, her partner died a couple of weeks after taking out a 2-year phone plan at about $80 a month. Is she liable to pay this contract out?
Did your son-in-law leave any estate?
Not really. Well, it all hasn't been sorted out yet.
No. If he went to he bought a phone on a plan, then that's one of your son-in-law's liabilities.
Yep.
So if he had money in the bank, then yes, that would be paid. Wouldn't be payable by your daughter, but it would be payable from the assets of your son-in-law.
Okay.
If your son-in-law had no assets, because everything they owned was joint, including the house, bank accounts, and the super was paid to the wife, then there are no assets.
Yep.
But it would be logical to give the phone back.
Yep. I see. So you think she should be able to get out of the thing by going to the...
Well, I know, not get out, just never get in. Unless your son-in-law had separate assets, your daughter is not responsible for the debt, and she's only responsible to the extent that he has assets. So if he was cleaned out by the funeral expenses, no, there's nowhere to go.
Phil, thank you very much. And David Whiting, Melbourne solicitor, enjoy the day. Have fun.
I will. Thank you very much.
Okay, great. He's already
I'll make it there for the second. It'll be okay.
Enjoy.